tracking can be a total mess, especially when you're working with people from all sorts of departments. Don't worry, today we are going to solve that problem. And guess what? It requires little to no code, and it's nothing you have to handwrite. Stay tuned, because today we are talking all about UTM codes. Okay, first things first, what exactly is a UTM code? Basically, it's just a little line of code that goes at the end of your URL and passes on information to your different analytics platforms. That's something we'll go over here in a few minutes. But the UTM code is just, like I said, that little line of code that goes at the end of your URL, and no matter how people get to that URL, they click it, it takes it to the exact same page. You're not creating a new page or anything, and that little line of code will pass off the information. So let's go over how exactly to create a UTM using Google Campaign UTM Builder.
We put in google.com here. The UTM is going to go at the end of that URL. It's going to send them to the same place, but it's going to go to the end of the URL. So maybe we're running a campaign, a YouTube campaign with a 6-second pre-roll. And for us, the campaign name is Fall 2020. And we'll get into some of this at the end. Anyways, so you can see that this URL now has a whole bunch of funky stuff at the end of it, right? Like I said, though, this URL is actually going to send people, they're still going to send people to Google. It's just going to also transfer all this information to whatever analytic platform we're using.
All right, awesome. So now you have your UTM code. What happens next? Where does all this information go? I'm going to show you just a few ways that you can find your UTM codes inside of Google Analytics. If you saw my previous video on Google Analytics, you'll know that some of my favorite views revolve around source medium and sometimes adding in a secondary dimension. This time I'm going to go to source medium, secondary dimension, using campaign as a secondary dimension so that I can get more information from my UTM code. However, I could always just go to the campaign section of Google Analytics, see that, and then use landing page. However, with the UTM code, we're actually putting all of the information you probably are going to want in the UTM code so that you don't have to add in multiple different layers. One of my other favorite views is the behavior flow. And it turns out that you can sort the behavior flow using source medium or campaign. All of this is going to be so great once we get all of our UTM information in it. Okay, so now you've created your UTM code and you know where to look. What about other instances where we can use our UTM codes? Well, it turns out that most analytics platforms allow you to use UTM codes or sort your data using the UTM codes.
So for instance, Lucky Orange, you can pass along that keyword here in Lucky Orange. You see it comes across as a UTM term. And so this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, so this person, maybe they came from a Google ad. All of these obviously are from Instagram, but maybe they came from a Google ad. But what exactly, what triggered it? Because they came here and they looked at all of these pages, and that's really interesting, right? These are, again, things that you're going to want to look at. So if you're using something like Lucky Orange and you want to pass along the UTM data with keyword data, or if you want to pass along keyword data with UTM information, you just throw in that keyword with the brackets around it. And so that way you don't have to make something specific every single time.
Okay, so now you have your UTM code, you know where to access all the information, but what do you use these UTM codes for? Actually, you can use them for just about anything. I've been a social media manager and used UTM codes in all of my posts. I've been a paid social manager and I put UTM codes on all of my ads, because really, remember, you're not adding code to anything like necessarily. You're not putting it on the back end of anything. It's just a different link. So it's essentially, you're creating all of these different links that are going to the exact same place. They just have a little bit of information at the end of them. So as a paid manager, I put all sorts of information on the back end using the UTM codes, because that allowed me to understand truly what was working and what wasn't working. I've used it in email marketing behind each call to action button, so I knew. And the reason we do this is so that all of the information can be found and seen inside of Google Analytics or whatever analytics platform you're wanting to use. Because yes, you get that information in Facebook. I know who's clicking what ads and how each ad is doing individually because Facebook tells me, but it's nice to see it in comparison to all of the other things that we're doing, right? So as a copywriter, I've used it inside of articles when I was linking back to things. I like to use it as an SEO for link building campaigns. I even just throw UTM codes on the back of random links that I'm clicking on or using because I think it's funny, and sometimes I am just wondering what analyst is going to see this weird source and medium come through, hoping to brighten up a few people's days. You never know. That's all I've got for you this time, guys. Don't forget, you're a beast.